All right. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. Welcome to this first knowledge session from the Africa Deep Tech Foundation, where we're going to be talking about Africa Deep Tech Challenge 2026. I'm here with my colleagues, some of whom you can see, some of whom you can't. Bola Ali and Julian Duru, and Fumi Olumoko is also here as well. Um, and we're backed by a bunch of other colleagues who may not be visible but have done a lot to make this challenge possible. And so I know we're 2 minutes past the hour right now. We'll give it maybe another minute or so, and um, and then we'll start. But in the meantime, uh, maybe if you have access to the chat, you can let us know if you can hear me loud and clear, and if you can see the presentation that is currently up. All right, I have feedback from Herbert, Uchukwu, Precious, and maybe you can also put in the chat where you're viewing us from. All right, yeah, can see folks there in the chat. It's good to have all of you. And we'll be starting. Yeah, we see folks from Nigeria, from Mauritius. Good stuff, good stuff. We'll start in exactly 1 minute. Zambia is in the house as well. All very welcome. We're going to start in a minute's time if you're just joining. Good to see all of you. Samuel, Demshon, More Love, Chungu, Marvina, Precious, all welcome. All right, it's 5 minutes past the hour. And we'll start. So, again, welcome everybody to this first knowledge session. My name is Emeka Fibo. I'm the convener of the Africa Deep Tech Foundation. And it is really exciting that we have you all here today to talk about the second Africa Deep Tech Challenge, Africa Deep Tech Challenge 2026. We coined it as the Laptop LLM Challenge. Maybe before we start, I'll spend a minute or two just to talk about the Africa Deep Tech Foundation, who we are, what we're about, and why we're doing this. So, the Africa Deep Tech Foundation is, in its simplest term, an organization that is focused on one thing and one thing only. It's focused on de-risking failure for early stage deep tech talent in Africa or from Africa, right? And without going too much into it right now, we recognize that deep tech, you know, is hard, right? It's harder than just purely building on the application layer. There's a lot of things that go into it. And for that reason, you know, failure is very expensive currently in the region when it comes to deep tech. For folks who are into research, who are into hardware, who are into super emerging technologies, um, people who are into the biosciences, people who are trying to do things that are different from the everyday applications that we see in the tech space today, there's limited support for you, and that makes failure very, very expensive. And because of that, a lot of people who ordinarily would have been building really awesome things in the region or from the region have to pivot to shall I say, more acceptable or more understood fields, right? Not because that's what they want to do, but because they lack the proper support. And so the Africa Deep Tech Foundation, we want to at least, do our own little bit to, first of all, let you know that you're not alone, through community, through initiatives like this that bring builders together, that bring people who think different together. Let you know that you're not alone. You're not the only crazy person, right? There are other crazy people like you who are building amazing things across the region. And, that's the first thing we do. Create community to let you know that you're not alone and give you encouragement. Then the other things we do, we try to support early stage deep tech builders by, connecting them with resources. Those resources could be mentorship from people who've done amazing things before, or who are also doing the same things you're trying to do at a higher level. Or even where we can, connecting you to like cold hard cash if possible, through investors, through competitions like this, and so on and so forth, connecting you to our partners across the world, who are also interested in deep tech or who work in deep tech, so that you at least have a fighting chance to take your dream to the next level, right? So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we are about. I don't know, Bola or Julian, for me, if anybody has anything to add to that before we continue.
I mean, absolutely. I don't think that there's anything, you basically covered it. We are by Africans for Africa and for the advancement of, just supporting deep tech practitioners on the continent. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah, so that brings us to today's initiative, or the reason we're here today, the
Well,
Africa Deep Tech Challenge 2026. Last year we had the Africa Deep Tech Challenge 2025. It was the first one we did. It was focused on resource constrained computing. It was really exciting. You can check out how it went. I don't know, maybe Fumi Bola, you can pop links in the chat so that people who didn't know about it can learn more about it. But it was a very exciting challenge. We had over 2,000 plus participants. We had more than 300 submissions from across 14 countries in the region. People built very awesome stuff around resource constrained computing. And at the end, we had an awesome finale presentation, that had all these folks from all over the region presenting to our amazing panel of judges. And at the end of that, four teams from across the region walked away with awesome prizes. And, they are doing, I'll say, fantastically well today. And in the course of this competition, actually going to be hearing from some of them as well. So we did that as a way to get a pulse on like the deep tech ecosystem, early stage deep tech ecosystem in the region. And it was really, really amazing. We followed that up with our Africa Deep Tech Conference earlier this year, right? And here we are now with the challenge 2026. And the theme of this challenge is a little bit different from what we did last year. Last year was resource constrained computing. This year we're honing in on the theme that you see on the screen right now, which is around on-device AI, right? And basically, we're saying we're challenging all of you to build on-device AI for the hardware that Africa actually has in abundance, right? And that is the laptop computers that are sitting on your desks, as we right now as we talk. And this is designed to be an engineering first competition that will democratize AI access across the region. So let's get into it, right? The question I'm asking is why are we doing this challenge? Why are we doing it in this way and why now, right? Um, I mean, it is no secret that the AI revolution is alive, well, and growing fast, right? Every other week, there's something crazy happening in the AI space. Like the first ChatGPT model that was released now seems like ancient history compared to all the things that are happening and all the things that are going to happen. And, Africa has been part of this revolution. I'm sure, you know, everybody on this webinar can tell me at least 10 different ways different people are using LLMs and so on to do a lot of things in their day-to-day life, right? So we haven't been, we're part of the revolution. But there's a part of this that, nobody really, really talks about that hasn't gotten a lot of emphasis, at least in our opinion. Um, in the Africa Deep Tech Foundation. And the way this wall was described was brought into stark reality by um, Oju Udezue, a good friend of mine from the Nduzi Foundation, who is running the Africa AI X Prize initiative, which we may talk a little bit about. Basically, he helped us frame this, or he inspired us to frame this in the way we're framing it now. And the basic thing there is that what is going to make the difference, whether Africa is going to just have a participatory role or be behind in this AI revolution that's happening, or whether we are going to actually take a leadership role, at the end of the day, it boils down to one thing: the cost of inference, right? How much does it cost for you to infer something useful from the model, right? Today, for the average person to use an LLM that does anything useful, you're thinking of there's some cost involved, and it's not small cost. Yes, there are some of the free LLMs out there, or free versions of the LLMs, but by the time you start talking about doing really, really interesting stuff, there's cost involved. For example, the standard cloud model today, like if you want the baseline package, you're paying about $20 a month, right? $20 a month is not trivial money, right? Same thing with any of the main foundational models that if you're looking to do something really, really interesting, you're paying an average of about 15, 20, $25 a month. So what impact does this have on, for example, a student, right, in university, right, who is looking to, vibe code the next big thing? You don't have budget for that, right? If you are an extension officer somewhere out, in the wilderness or in the farmland trying to do something interesting, maybe the best model you have access to requires internet connectivity. And if you don't have internet connectivity, you're stuck, right? If you're a small business owner, maybe somewhere in Dakar or wherever, you're trying to do something interesting for your business, trying to get information. Um, like the other day, I was watching an ad from one of the foundational model creators where a small business owner was able to use a spreadsheet to, with one click, create a whole new business plan that turned their business around, right? But of course, what they won't tell you in that ad is that one click, that person must have paid upwards of $20 a month, right? And that person has blazing internet connection and constant power supply, right? So all of this to say that the model for large language models that are commercially or openly available today is not suitable to the situation or the real life situation in Africa, right? Because as it says here on the slide, cloud LLMs require API fees, require stable internet, reliable electricity, and so on and so forth. And for millions of Africans out there, you know, what could be seen as a minor friction in other regions is actually a huge blocker, right? And so the question then is, what are we going to do about it? There are different things that are being done all over the world. So it's not like what we're doing is like the first thing or the first time anybody's recognizing this problem or whatever. But there are different things. We are inspired to take on I'll call it like an engineering first approach, right? While conversations are happening around how to bring down the cost of these LLMs or how to create more reliable energy infrastructure in the region or create more reliable internet and so on. All these things are going on, but we are like, hey, and again, this was inspired through a conversation with our partners at the Induzi Foundation. How can we actually have an engineering first approach to this and get our deep tech talent focused on this problem? Because we are confident that with the talent we have in the region, there is no way that if there is sustained focus on this problem, that in some not too distant future, we will have a solution. And that is really what this challenge is about. And so when we talk about the hardware that Africa actually has, right? And you can see, the mission of the challenge is AI for the hardware Africa actually has. You know, yes, there's a lot of great work being done. Data centers are coming up across the region. Obviously every day the internet gets better and so on and so forth. There's a lot of policy work being done around AI and models and so on. But one thing we do know is that millions of Africans today have a laptop, that at least has power that is sitting on their desk right now.
Yeah.
And what? Sorry?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I know I have one. I know my siblings have one. So yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but like a significant portion of the population has it. Okay. And we ask ourselves, what is the average laptop look like? Right? And these are the specs for what we feel the average laptop should look like. Right? So typically an 8 gig RAM machine, right? With no discrete GPU and about 256 gig of storage. Uh, you know, I think Ubuntu 22 is probably the current stable version that is out there that has the most install base or the most support. And the costs should be between whether you're getting it second hand or new or whatever, maybe $150 to $500. But the challenge is that even though a lot of Africans have this spec of laptop, if you run, even if you manage to get your hands by some magic on any of the LLMs today, and you run it on that laptop, the thing might blow up. It might burst into flames.
Don't try it. Don't try it.
You know, because again, yes, even the LLMs that are on device today, a lot of them or most of them are, they are built for the MacBook in Silicon Valley, right? They assume that you have a lot of resources on your laptop. And so basically what we're asking folks to do is to find a way to squeeze out the best performance from the commodity laptops that we have. It's as simple as that, right? And the assumption is that this model you're going to build should work on this device, be able to give very reasonable solutions, and you know, to make sure that that is actually the case, it should be able to at least do that even when there's no internet, right? So that is basically, in a nutshell, what this challenge is about. And so, and again, we're trying to keep this presentation part hopefully as brief as possible so that we can take time to answer some of your questions. Um, a lot of the all the information we're sharing here is on the website. You can get it there, but just want to give it a little bit of voiceover so that hopefully it gives you more context and you're able to go on and build. So basically what we're asking you to build is, to create a model that can run on this device or on a similar device with no internet, that can give accurate responses and drive value in any of these subdomains, right? You can be an individual contributor, or you can be in a team of up to 3 people, right? Um, and yeah, the model should be able to work and give end-to-end solutions in any one of these domains with no internet, and it should be able to work on this device. That's it, right? And these are the domains that we put out there. So you can choose any one of them to focus your model on. So you can either have maths and scientific reasoning, healthcare and medical, agriculture, creative writing, which is something that we don't think gets talked about enough. Coding assistance is another huge one. Of course, being able to liberate our builders to use AI in an affordable way is probably the key to this whole thing. Corporate and enterprise environment is also another interesting domain, and also autonomous AI agents, right? So we've all seen the likes of OpenClaw and the like. What would an African version of that look like? So you pick the domain that matters most to you, you build something real, the model, and we can go dive a bit more into this. The model you build is going to be tested on a machine that has the specs that we just showed you, and it's going to be run with no internet connectivity. And the expectation is that the outcome or the output is accurate and that it doesn't burn up the machine. So, how are you actually going to be judged? This is an important part, obviously. Um, if you go to the website of the competition, you will see a number of resources there. The two most important resources, apart from the rules, you should read the rules of the competition very carefully. But the two most important resources on the website are the template, the GitHub repo that contains a template for what your submission is going to look like, and the ADTC profiler, which is a tool that you can use to, test your model as you build. And that tool gives you an insight into how we're going to judge the model. Okay. Um, the three categories which the model are going to be judged is, the first is model accuracy that and quality, which has about 50% of the total, right? And basically, it is talking about how accurate your model is. Like if I asked it to write a computer program that solves a quadratic equation, assuming you're in the computer science domain, your model is in a computer science domain, and he writes that program, will that program actually be able to solve a quadratic equation? It's as simple as that. Or if I ask you a question about in the agri space or in the health space, how accurate is that solution going to be? The other part of the criteria is measuring basically how how this model performs, how it delivers these results on the device that we told you. Does it deliver it quickly without throttling the processor and heating up the machine and all of that stuff? And if your model is adjudged to have to be addressing like a real African problem or a problem that is really, really relevant to the Africa use case, you can get up to 10 extra points, right? You can get up to 10 extra points for that. And so, I'll just give an example I'm making up on the spot. So, for example, it's one thing to say I'm building a model that can help a small business owner. That's great, right? Or maybe you can help them do accounting. That's awesome. But will that model work for a small business owner in Casablanca, right? Or a small business owner in Bafusam, right? Or wherever, right? That is what this Africa use case and relevance is talking about. Now, the profiler that you're downloading on GitHub, and we'll get more into this, is basically testing the physical aspects of the challenge, right? And that is the throughput performance and the memory efficiency and how it works with the processor. It's not testing the model accuracy because we want to assume that you can test that yourself, right? Within your as you're building. Model accuracy will be judged by the judges who will be looking at all the entries. And what do you get for all the pain, right? Yes, I'll start this way. Yes, there is, there are cash prizes and in-kind prizes, but I'll say the biggest value that you're gonna get, and I'm saying this not just based on, I'm not just saying it because it sounds cool. I'm saying it based on our experience from last year, right? The biggest value that people got out of this challenge was not necessarily, I mean, the money is great, but the biggest value was the opportunity that this challenge will give you to push yourself beyond your limits and discover what you're actually capable of doing and to get recognized for it. That is the biggest value you're going to get. One pledge that we made when we ran this challenge last year and that we're making again is that if you participate in this challenge and you push yourself beyond your limit, you build something great, you build something you've never done before, you achieve something you've not achieved before, the pledge that we are making to you as Africa Deep Tech Foundation is that we are going to make sure that uh, everybody in the world, at least as far as as far as we can reach, gets to hear about it. That's number one. And we will go on to support you beyond the challenge. That's number two. And you can ask people who took part last year, right?
Yeah.
There is no month that goes by where and this is apart from what we did connecting them with mentors and so on and so forth. But even months after the challenge, there's no month that goes by where we are not connecting them with different opportunities that they merited based on their participation. Right. And Bola, do you want to add something on that?
No, I mean, I was even going to say they would potentially be hearing for some of the last year's participants, for example, during the course of the challenge, and what this challenge has meant to them or has done for them since last year that they participated. I mean, we've had some of the previous participants join. I mean, for those that were very interested in entrepreneurship, join like accelerator programs, boot camps with, partner organizations, and they're doing pretty well for themselves. So, like Emeka has said, it doesn't just stop at the challenge. The building continues, the support continues in line with the Africa Deep Tech Foundation's, mandate. Yeah.
Yeah. So that for me personally is like the biggest thing. And to Bola's point, some people are interested in entrepreneurship. Some people are just builders, right? And you just want to build, 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 build. Either way, it's great. We'll support you. We'll connect you with opportunities. We'll connect you with partners. And yeah, if you stick with us, we'll take you places. It's as simple as that. We'll do everything within our power to do that. But obviously, money is still important, like I said.
Of
And
course.
so, yes, it's still very important. So, we have a lot of great prizes that may actually increase as this competition goes on. Who knows? We'll see. But this is the minimum. What you're seeing right here is the minimum price that is available right now. We've got more than $16,000 in prizes. The grand prize is going to walk away with $8,000. The second prize is going to walk away with $4,000. Third place, 3,000. The best Africa use case bonus is $1,500. And this could be won by anybody, right? It could be, you may not even be one of the first three winners, but if the judges feel you had the best Africa use case, you're going to take away $1,500. Now, even if you don't take away any of these top prizes and you make it to the finalists, right? You're gonna get $250 in GPU credits each, right? And this is coming courtesy of our partner Udutech. We also have people who make it to the semifinals. Up to 20 winners will get $50 in GPU credits each. And if you're in this game, you know better than I do what difference this could make in, the work you're doing to train models. And I'll just talk a little bit about how this actually should have been a slide here, but it's all good. I'll talk a little bit about how the competition work. So there's the first stage where we are now. During this first stage, we're gonna have, you're gonna be building, we're gonna have knowledge sessions with different people talking to different aspects of this problem to either inspire you or give you knowledge on how and what to build. Um, and then at the end of the first part of it, the gate one, and maybe if you have the dates, you can put them in the chat as well. And then at the end of the gate one, everybody's gonna submit on DevPost, right? Remember, your submission has to follow the format that was specified. Use the submission template. Use the submission template. If you don't use the submission template, it's just as good as you didn't participate, right? So you submit, use the submission template that's on GitHub. We're gonna, it's gonna go through a round of judging. After that round of judging, we are going to select up to 20 winners. And the reason I say up to is that it may not actually be 20 because there's a quality bar that has to be maintained. And only submissions that meet that quality bar will make it to the semifinal. Now, up to 20 winners or 20 semifinalists are going to be selected. Those semifinalists are going to go through a short interview right? And you're going to be connected with more resources, probably more mentors, and so on. And you're going to be given another window of time to fine-tune what you've done. Maybe take the model to the next level. There could be something you wish, oh, if I had more time, I would have done this, or whatever it is. Or maybe now you see you're in the semifinals, you you go for even more stuff. You make the model even more awesome. And then you submit again, right? Using the same template. And you're going to go through another round of judging, at which point 10 finalists or up to 10 finalists will be selected. These finalists will then have to prepare for a live final session. So it's going to be a webinar, kind of like this one. We're going to have all our judges, and you're going to talk about what you built. It's going to be, your scores would have been reviewed and so on and so forth. The judges are going to pepper you with questions on what you built,
Yeah.
right? Again, if you want a taste of this, you can watch the one from last year. Maybe we'll put the YouTube link in the Discord community. Um, you can watch the one from last year to get a taste of what it looked like. And after that, the judges are going to select the winners live with the world watching, right?
Yeah.
And basically, that's how it's gonna happen.
And double clicking on what you just said, Emeka, I just wanted to also shout out for those that might also, even if you don't get into the final, I think if you go and look at the links, for example, about the last year challenge, you'll still see a lot of the semi-finalists. You'll see a lot, across board. And once in a while, we get partners who go on there, see something that they like, and they say they want to be introduced. So to make us first point, the exposure that you get out of this, and the final output for us, which is potentially you could either, whether you are thinking about open sourcing this for every other person to build on top, collaborating together to refine whatever it is that you submitted. So yeah, while the price is there, there's a much larger ecosystem support, even if you feel like, okay, I didn't get to the final or something like that. But again, if we are going into the final, be ready for the pepper and the drilling.
Indeed, indeed. Again, and it's all exposure. All these things, the way we've created it, the way we've designed this, is to give maximum exposure to the builders. The reason we have all these different gates and stages, there's going to be announcements of people who make it to each stage and so on and so forth. And when we announce this, our partners and the ecosystem is watching. They get to see who's doing what. They reach out to people. It's awesome, but you have to put in the work. That's the only thing. Um, yeah, so how do you get going? We hopefully have made it as simple as possible. You have to register on DevPost. Um, you form a team if you want to, or if you want to go solo, that's also great. You choose your problem domain, which domain you want to tackle. Clone the submission template and model profiler. Read the rules. Build your solution. Submit. And it's as simple as that, right? Obviously, it's not as simple as that because building is never that easy. But the steps hopefully are straightforward. Um, and we've done our best and will continue to do our best to provide resources for anybody who is building because we know building is not easy. We have the submission template and model profiler on there. You should grab it. Again, courtesy of Voodoo Tech, we have a process for you to apply for up to 5 hours of GPU credits, right? To help with those training your models. Um, like I know this is one of the frequently asked questions. We don't care where or how you train your model, right? We don't care. Do whatever you have to do, wherever you have to do it, so long as it can run on that laptop spec that we gave, right? And fortunately, we have an opportunity for folks to apply. It's the number of credits available is limited, so obviously that's why it's an application process. Not everybody who applies will get it, but it's great that we have partners who are actually able to step up and make this available. We're going to um, we're going to have multiple knowledge sessions like this one. This one is focused on the logistics of the challenge. We're going to have knowledge sessions around, how to think about your model and the domain you're applying it to, how to frame the problem, and so on. We'll have knowledge sessions on the more technical aspects. We're going to be bringing experts in different areas of this problem space to share their knowledge and answer questions and basically call it like mentoring at scale. And as the challenge goes on, we get more and more partners who are interested in, being part of this conversation. If you're one of them watching, please reach out to us. And they provide more resources and will always make those available to the community that is building. So again, there's a frequently asked questions section on the challenge page. If you scroll to the bottom, um, yeah, maybe I'll even scroll through there right now. Um, Go there. You see a lot of the questions you have been answered. And if you have more questions, we have a Discord community. Please join it. Ask your questions there, and we'll get you the answers you need. The links are there in the chat. Um, and yeah, at a high level, that's it. We're going to open up space to take questions now. Use the Q&A section to ask your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we don't have the answers live, we'll go get the answers for you, and we'll share it in the Discord community. So, make sure you get on there so that you can see the conversation. And with that, I will stop sharing the screen, or let me just do one last thing. Um, so I want to actually, I'm doing this just so that folks can see the challenge website. This is the challenge website. It has all the information, everything I talked about right now. Um, the reason I'm scrolling down is to show you the FAQ section. So there's a bunch of questions here. Obviously, I hope you've gone through it. If you haven't, you should. Um, but yeah, that's basically it. So use the Q&A section of the webinar to ask your questions. I'm going to scroll through right now and we'll answer any questions that we have right now. We'll see if there's more coming. But that's basically the gist of it. So while I wait for the questions to come in, I'll look through and see if there's anything on the chat. Uh, Thank you, Idris, for your kind words. Yes, we agree the challenge is awesome. I hope there wasn't any echo anymore. Um,
Yeah, so I see a couple of questions in the Q&A.
okay.
Uh, I think first one being, can one person be part of two teams in case they're involved in more than one project? Hmm.
Yeah, that's a great question. Go for
Hmm.
it. You know.
However, if, if
Yeah.
if the projects are in the same domain,
Mm.
is that still fine, or must they be in separate domains across different teams to ensure that, you
No,
know,
I mean, I think one person can be in two projects. Obviously, I'll state the obvious that your teammates should know, right? Because it's going to be open anyway, right? Like all the submissions are on DevPost. So at the end of the day, everybody who was on every project is going to be public information. So I guess a pro tip is that is a conversation you should be open about with your teammates, right? That would be my recommendation. Um, okay. And that was from Joseph. So thank you, Joseph. That was a great question. We have a question from an anonymous attendee. And you're asking for the required self-reported profiler score. What should participants enter if they have not yet completed any model training or profile? Can participants find their official ADTC team ID for the metadata? Oh, where can you find your team ID? And is it assigned after dev post submission available somewhere in the challenge portal? That was a good question. So, um, first of all, you can't or you shouldn't be able to submit if you haven't done the training and like if you haven't trained your model and profiled it using the profiler. That's the only way you have a score, right? So you should have completed your model training for you to submit. Do not submit if you haven't finished. I think that's the first thing. Where can you find your ADTC team ID?
I, I, I I think that team ID is definitely the one that you and your team choose. So if you are working as a team, so what's your team name, right? Or even if you're an individual, what are you calling yourself? Are you calling yourself Abubakar, or are you calling yourself Team something? So basically, that's
Yeah.
what that means. So what's your team name, and what should you be? What should you guys be called? Team what?
Yeah, so I'll just make it simple for you. If you go on DevPost, when you create your project, you have a project name. So I'll use this URL, for example, that I'm putting in the chat right now. Um, right, and maybe I'll just share my screen for the purpose of folks who will be watching later. So if you can see my screen, this is a URL for the winner that won the challenge last year. FarmSpeak, right? They are called Project FarmSpeak. And you can see the last part of this URL is their project ID from DevPost. So it's as simple as that. So you must have created your project to get it. Um, Remember to use the Q&A section to ask your questions. I see some people are raising their hands. Put your question in the Q&A section. So Favor is asking, can we package our models into a product, say a desktop application? Because a plain model may not be useful to most people, but with product interface, users can interact with it much better. So that is a really, really good question. And it's one that we really thought about and argued about when we were designing this challenge. Yes, having a desktop application is great, and that's what's ultimately going to make the model useful. But we are interested in the model itself because we believe that that is the root of the problem, of the engineering problem. If you have a good model, anybody can vibe code an application that sits on top of it, right? And even though for you to build an application that can go to market and so on and so forth, that's a different challenge on its own. That is not what this challenge is focusing on. We are focusing on the root engineering problem, which is how can you create a model that can run on commodity hardware and be accurate in a particular domain. Maybe one day we may talk about running a competition on like the application layer and everything around that. But that wouldn't be an engineering or a deep tech challenge anymore. That would be more of a go-to-market challenge.
Yeah. I should also have that. I mean, I guess to the person's point is for the judges, for example, how are they going to interact with your model, right? So we are, as ADTF is also providing an interface. So the model that you provide is going to be run, and then they will then, so the submission that you're making, part of our judging is the profiler that we're also giving you. We are running that profiler on our own hand to do your scoring. We are also providing an interface for the judges to be able to interact. So the model accuracy part, we are testing for that. We are asking your model's question. The model is responding. For now, that is basically, the test that is going into it. So if you're worried about, oh, how would they know that my model works or how would they do this, we'll throw questions at it. And don't forget that there are also test prompts that you should also be including in your submission, right? Which will be part of what would also validate. So we'll take the prompt that you've provided, and then there will also be prompts from our own judges and our own end that will also, enter into your model to be able to test that it behaves the way it should behave.
Exactly. So, you know, just give us the model in the format that we requested it, make sure it works, and we will work to obviously grade it and assess it based on that. And again, the reason we designed it this way is that we believe that this is the core of the challenge, from a deep tech perspective. We may at some point have a conversation about like what are the kinds of applications that can be built on top of this. And I will always also say that post the challenge, right? A huge part of what's going to happen after the challenge, after we have people who've built awesome models, is we're going to work with you to then, you know, figure out what is the best way to bring this model to market, working with our partners, working with our networks, and so on. That's where the application part of it is going to come in. So I think that's something that's important that I should state. But that's a great question. Uh,
I
Victor is
think I already
asking,
answered
yes,
Victor's
go on.
question, but maybe you want to just add to that. Add it.
Um, you say who answered the question?
So Victor, you had mentioned, you
Yeah.
had touched on Victor's question briefly. Is a preliminary prototype submission acceptable for Gate 1 if the final GGUF model and benchmark results are still in progress, provided the repository dataset documentation and project report are submitted? I mean, how would you submit a project report if it's not ready?
Yeah. So we need the model, right? The judging is going to be based on the model and the project report. But without the model, there's even nothing to judge, right? But even if you submitted a model without a project report, at least you score something. You may not win, but at least you'll be in the race. So we need the model. And the reason we have different gates is because we know that building is a process. So, and especially in deep tech. So, however far you go as at the first gate, submit what you have. Like, submit the model you have and let's test it and see. You may not think it's the best model, but you may be the best out of everybody, right? That's how these competitions work. Um, Idris is saying, is the challenge about building and retraining an LLM model only, or can we give an LLM a grounding through uh, RAG? So again, I'll say build the model however you like, but the model is going to be tested offline, right? Build the model however you like, to work however you like, whatever you want to do, but the judges are going to judge it on that machine spec with no internet connectivity. That's basically the way I say it. And the reason we're doing it like that is, we want to assess the model itself, the architecture of the model, the way it was created, and how it works. The moment you start connecting to different resources online, it's no longer about the model itself, right? So you build it, make sure it works with RAG or whatever, but we're going to test it with no internet. It's going to be tested offline. Hopefully that answers the question. Happy to continue the conversation on Discord if not. We have another question from an anonymous attendee. Is it necessary to train or fine-tune a model, or are we good with open weight models available to do the work? So I'll say the best a few things. The model you're submitting has to be like you can't just take copy and paste somebody's work and submit, right? You have to have some skin in the game. It has to be something that you've developed yourself. Having said that, you can start with any of the currently available open models and fine tune that or work with that or evolve that into what you're going to use. So, using open source models as a baseline to start is allowed, but the ultimate submission has to be your own work. All right. So, that's hopefully, if I understood the question, hopefully, answer that. Someone is asking, how do I join the Discord server? We'll put the link again in the chat. Um, if one, Precious is asking, if one has chosen a domain on DevPost, can one change the domain later? I mean, so when you're submitting, before up until when you make your final submission, you can change the domain as many times as you like. Also, we reserve the right to change your domain to whatever we feel it should be. I'll give an example. You see all the domains there, right? There is one on programming, for instance. Um, if somebody creates a model that writes programs that can be used to calculate fertilizer, right? Fertilizer applications in agriculture. You could argue that it is either agriculture or computer science as a domain. Those are both valid arguments. And you could choose either one. But we reserve the right to say, okay, based on what we feel and what is in the submission, this is the domain it belongs to. I hope that works. We'll go to the next question. Marvina is asking, can one run another project under a different domain or just one project for the challenge? You can have as many projects or submissions as you're able to do. Obviously, it's all a question of your bandwidth and headspace and how much time you're able to spend on it. But there is no restriction on number of submissions or how many teams you can be part of.
Yeah, and I think, like you said earlier, I mean, if you have two teams, for you to make sure that both teams are aware that you're submitting different things.
Yeah. Um, we have a question. Thank you for the session. You're welcome. Grateful. Thank you for coming. It says pushing the train models to GitHub might be challenging due to size limitations. Are we expected to submit the train model files themselves or just the code base with instructions to start and run the entire process? Do we need to host the service on a domain and provide a live URL, or is the GitHub repository submission sufficient as indicated in the instructions? Well, do you want to take this?
Yeah, Julian has dropped off. So yes, absolutely. I mean, you can one, if you have the bandwidth, push to GitHub. But again, if you look at the submission template, it actually details, what is recommended. You can either push this to Hugging Face, make it again, it has to be public, but anywhere that you push it to. So if you've run the profiler, if you've downloaded the profiler, you would see that there's a download model.sh where we're downloading your model from whatever link that you've added in that particular submission template. So in a nutshell, I would say it needs to be public. It needs to be in a place that we can download it without restriction. You don't necessarily have to upload it to GitHub repository. And then the submission template document basically also provides a little bit more detail and instruction, on the possibility. But Hugging Face is this. If you look at the sample repository, for example, or the template repository, for example, it does leverage Hugging Face. So you can also adopt that same Hugging Face structure.
Cool. Thank you, Bolahan. We have a question from Deji around the hardware. Says, I understand that the official evaluation and benchmarking will be performed on the ADTC standard laptop. For the demonstration portion of the project, would it be acceptable to also showcase the solution running on another edge device, such as an 8 gig Raspberry Pi, as part of the domain use case? The laptop will still be the primary benchmark target. I'm just wondering if an additional edge device demo is allowed. I mean, you called it yourself. Laptop is the primary benchmark target. Any other thing you want to do that you feel gives you a greater chance of winning, by all means, please do it. Share the information with us. Um, yeah, that should probably be part of your project report. And you're also submitting a video, right? A 2-minute video as part of this submission. If you want to also showcase or talk about it there, you can do that. Um, we have another question from an anonymous attendee. Uh, I think we answered this question before. I think it was a repeat of the train model question. So, yeah, we answered that before. We have a question. It says from an anonymous attendee, please, can you throw more light on the device hardware requirements for the challenge? Also, I applied for GPU access but haven't gotten any response yet. I'll answer the last question first. We're still reviewing, and you will get a response shortly on the application for GPU access. But thank you for applying. So I don't know what you mean by throw more light on the hardware requirements for the challenge. I can very quickly share my screen again, but everything is on the website. Uh, Let me just share my screen real quick. Um, so if you can see my screen, this is the these are the specs for the hardware benchmark. I mean, the whole idea here is to mirror like the everyday laptop that most people have. Okay. You may not, it doesn't mean doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and buy, you have to go and buy it if you don't have it. You can use your own laptop to build and make sure you find a machine that has the specs to test it on. You can actually go on AWS or Google Cloud and create a virtual machine that that mirrors this spec, and it will give you a good idea of how your model is going to perform. It may not be able to give you insights into the temperature throttling part, but every other thing like the RAM and the GPU and so on, it could give you an idea of that. So that's something I could suggest for folks who may not have the machine, but maybe you're using a MacBook, but you want to make sure it works on this kind of machine. But these are the hardware specifications that we're talking about. Hopefully that answers your question. Um, Victor is asking, has the official agricultural validation sample set been released? If so, where can participants access it? Great question. And I think I'll answer this question uh, beyond agriculture, right? So the bigger question is, are there data sets that are available that will be used as benchmarks for each of the models? And the short answer to that is no. And the reason that is the case is we are aware that, we created all these domains. And because of the nature of this challenge, where people are building on-device language models that work on these low-end devices, like these low-end laptops, your model is likely to be very niche and focused on a particular problem space. One thing we do not want in this challenge, I'll just put it out there, is a situation where everybody is building the same thing. So, for example, I know in the good old days of AI, like when everybody was building leaf disease identifier, right? Because that is the thing that has the data set is available, and so that's what everybody's building. That's not what we want. We want you to build something that solves a real problem in a domain that you're interested in. We want you to go deep. And so you are actually going to be the one providing your own data that will be used to evaluate your model. And how is that going to work? When you submit your model, you're going to submit you'll be asked for two prompts, right? Two sample prompts that test your model, right? That is the first input. Now, those prompts are going to be used to profile your model to see how it performs. And we will also use your prompts to create other prompts related to the domain space that you're building for. We'll use your prompt, we'll use your project report, we'll use the information you provided in the submission to extrapolate other prompts that can be used to test your model, just to make sure that there is no overfitting going on, right? And then the judge is going to also test your model based on what you said the model does. Okay, so it's not a situation where we're providing one data set or one set of prompts or whatever that everybody's going to use. You are the one who will basically, it's almost like you're judging yourself by yourself in that sense. And we're doing it this way to make sure that we have great diversity in solution space and what people build. We want you to actually come up with new novel ideas around how language models can be applied in Africa or for Africans versus everybody building the same thing. So hopefully that answers Victor's question. Again, happy to continue the conversation in Discord. Anonymous is asking, can one run another project under a different domain or just one project for the challenge? I think we talked about this before. You can submit as many projects as your brain capacity and time bandwidth can permit. Norbert is asking, how will the autonomous agent track be judged? After building the model, are we expected to connect it to open source agents, orchestrations such as Hermes, OpenClaw, and how is the evaluation going to be for this track? So build the model however you want, test it however you want. The judges are actually going to test the model themselves. So based on what you say it can do, the judges are going to try to do that thing. The one thing I'll say is make sure that there's a version of what your model does that works without internet. That would be the response to that. But
I
again,
think it's very important to double click on that offline part. Looks like a lot of
yes,
people might be missing that. The model, the final submission must work offline. And for us, outside of just downloading your model, so maybe in case you didn't hear it or how the evaluation is going to be done, we are going to get that specific hardware spec, the physical hardware spec, and we are going to take your model and run it on that specific hardware, and it must not have access to the internet. So internet is going to be turned off while we are doing the test on that particular hardware, based on everything that you have reported that you can do, and based on what we are also looking out for in terms of the metrics.
yeah, exactly. So, but I'm really excited to see that someone is thinking about the autonomous agent track.
Yep.
So,
Again, I also think that if, for example, and that's not to also discourage you from doing all of this, you can
mm,
probably show if it can do that in addition to working offline,
yes,
fantastic. Or if there are versions of these tools that also work offline that you've downloaded on your laptop, have no internet connection, again, you can add it to your video, but just to note that the evaluation here is going to be focused on offline capability, offline first.
Yeah. So don't limit yourself in terms of, you know, just to offline. But for the purpose of the judging, it's going to be judged offline first. And the reason should be obvious. If you can work offline, then it can work online, right? But if you can work online, doesn't mean you can work offline. So that's basically it. Anonymous is asking, but that was a great question. So thank you for asking that. Anonymous is asking, can the self-reported profiler score be estimated from the published formula or must it come from the official profiler tool? Maybe Bola, do you want to
Yeah,
take that?
I can
Julian.
answer. I can
Okay.
answer this. Yeah, so it needs to come from the official tool, right? It's best you use the official tool to run the sample, and then what it's generated is what it's used. Yeah. So that's to answer that question. Use the official tool.
Exactly. And as part of the judging, we're going to run the profiler on your model. And if the discrepancy is more than, I think, is it again, 15% or something like that? Like, if there is a large discrepancy between your self-reported score and what we get on our own end, that automatically acts as a discount for you. Like, you're going to be penalized for that. Just
So
FYI.
make sure you're honest. When you run it locally, this result you get, validate it and make sure that you're reporting the right things, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you, Julian.
More is asking, okay, yeah. So you're new to this kind of hackathon that is speculated. Okay. I'm not sure I understand the question, but first thing I'll say, we welcome all new joiners. We're always, I don't know, overjoyed when new people join the deep tech community, especially our deep tech community, and for you to be a first time caller,
Yeah.
you know,
Our
uh,
evangelism is working.
yes, yes, and it says a lot about you actually
Okay.
that you saw this challenge and you felt this was something that you should be involved in. It says a lot about you, and so you're welcome. Yes, there's hardware requirements. It has to work offline. If you have more questions, please follow up on Discord and we can, actually get to it. What should be the highest model size?
Okay. So, and to double click on that one, if you're also looking to team up, I think a lot of people are also joining Discord. So you can
Hmm,
probably, give a shout out in there for if there are people that want to team up or if you have other people that you want to collaborate with. We please encourage cross domain collaboration. So please reach out to. We're very passionate about cross discipline. So if there are other people that you can work with, to kind of get this done, please do. Yeah, sorry, Emeka, go ahead.
exactly. Yeah, and that was for more. Yeah, please. Welcome and, you're welcome to work solo or join a team. So someone's asking about the highest model size, right? Again, there is no limitation on the model size. The main thing is you should bear in mind the hardware you're building for. These are all engineering trade-offs you're going to have to make, right? Model size, how big is the model, number of parameters, all that kind of stuff. These are all trade-offs you're going to have to think about and make in the course of creating your model. We want to actually see how you think through it. And yeah, at the end of the day, your model is going to be assessed the same way, across the board. And the person who has the most accurate model that solves a big enough problem on that hardware is going to win.
Yeah, yeah, and just in the case of also just on a lighter note, your model size definitely should not. I mean, the whole laptop that we're going to be testing this on is 256 gig. So if your model magically is 257 gig, which I don't think would happen. But if your model is 257 gig, there's no way we can test it, right? So in that sense, I guess there's a constraint. But again, to Emeka's point, there really is no size. But again, just to note that.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for that question. It's a great question. Marvina is asking, can you clarify if we should input our raw local generation throughput, or is there a different combined metric we should look for? So, Bola, do you want to take that one?
I'm not sure I understand that. But again, when you run the profiler on your own system, you are going to be generating the submission.json file, right? And you're uploading that submission.json file as part of your final submission, right? So there's the part where you are declaring what you tested on your own side. And there's the part where we are testing what you have told us that you tested, and that it works. So those are the metrics that we are looking out for. Everything we have published on the website are the metrics that we are measuring and that the profiler is also going to be measuring. So which is why you on your own hand, and if you see by now, whether we are testing you to add the test prompt, or we're asking you, to run the profiler, is so that we want to be sure that before you are submitting, if you have run whether the profiler or something else, then we will know. Because again, the test prompt that you're providing us is, hopefully we hope that you test you test the model that you've developed. But in addition to that, is the submission.json is going to be generated when you run the profiler, right? So we don't expect you to modify any of those, just to upload and submit as part of your final submission.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Bola. Thank you, Martina, for that great question. Demola is asking, can we use private data sets for RAG and fine-tuning? Again, like, we don't care how you train the model or how you come up with the model. We only care where it's going to run and how it's going to be tested. And again, for everybody talking about RAG, the model has to work offline. That's the condition, right? So, yeah, you can do with that information what you will, but that's a great question. And Hamza, you're welcome. We have another question from an anonymous attendee. It says, since the challenge strictly limits us to standard 8 gig RAM laptops, the technical temptation is to compress models heavily down to 2-bit or 3-bit weights using quantization to maximize speed. However, extreme compression often destroys a model's ability to process nuanced local context, regional dialects, or mixed language phrases like pidgin or localized terms. How are the judges balancing the technical speed benchmarks against the semantic accuracy and localization when evaluating the final builds? Basically, you've just outlined the engineering problem that we are asking you to solve, right? Engineering is all about constraints, compromises in your design. I love this question because you're basically, um, you know, maybe we might even copy this question and share it, share it in the community, right? Because I love it because it actually details a lot about what this challenge is. And what you've outlined is basically the reason why people have not solved this problem today. And we're asking you to find a way around it, right? One thing that we've done to kind of help you in that regard, that is why we cut it down to domains. And maybe one way could be to have a narrower focus. That maybe I'm giving you like a little tip, right? But there are different trade-offs you're going to have to make. That's basically it. That's basically it. Um, but it's a really great question. And I think that brings us to the end of the question. I am looking through the chat to see if there's anything that was missed. So somebody's asking, are desktop packaging frameworks allowed for the user interface as long as the model runs fully offline through llama.cpp? All dependencies disclosed and the complete application remains within the 8 gig hardware performance limits. For this competition, we're not interested in your user interface. We're interested in the model, right? So use the template and submit it the way it is in the template. We're not interested in the user interface. We're interested in the model itself. Hopefully that answers Chatru Prasad's question. I think I'm looking through the chat. I think all the questions have been answered. Yeah, I think we did it. So you want to say something? Well,
No. Yes. Looks like all the questions have been answered. We're excited. Are you excited? And I hope that everybody has joined Discord. If you are not on Discord, please join Discord so that any other question that you can't think of right now, you can share him there. You can collaborate. You can have, you can. We want to hear about what you're experiencing as you're building as well. So please, we're seeing some very interesting, which tells us that people are thinking about it, whether people that are trying to do some training on their laptops, share your experience online as well. We want to hear about it, but yeah,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, this is great. Like, and make no mistake about it, like what you guys are doing or going to be doing is something not many people have done before, right? You're breaking new ground. So it is expected that there will be challenges. It's going to be hard, but you come out of it a much better systems thinker, builder, and frankly, a much better person, right? And we're going to be here with you every step of the way. And we're really, really excited to see what comes out of this. Like the questions we've gotten on this webinar alone, yeah, really gives us a lot of excitement to see what comes out. And so on behalf of everybody, some of whom you're seeing, like Bolawan, and some who you're not, all the team that helped put this together, Fumi, Julian, Victor, I'm blanking, a bunch of other great people, the entire ADTC team, Zach, and so on and so forth. Yeah, thank you so much, and stay locked on our Discord channel and social media channels. Lots more information is going to be coming out. This is just the beginning. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And we're excited to see all the awesome things you build. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your evening. Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.